calls for the complete destruction of a people who are just making an alliance with each other than if he's calling for their destruction because they're murdering innocent children. Oh man, I try to imagine today what it would be like if somebody today, wrote in an excavation report that this is evidence for the iniquity of the Amorites. I mean, that would be off the scales politically incorrect. However, it is the right interpretation. That is the practice that was going on at the high place of Gezer, and the Bible was the right tool to use to bring out that understanding. And so what has changed over the years? The Bible hasn't changed. The evidence in the ground that was found hasn't changed. What has changed is scholarship's interpretation of this type of evidence. Because over time, as the field became more and more secular, then the secular agenda, which teaches that man by nature is basically good, couldn't have a bunch of Canaanites running around sacrificing children. And so the later interpretations were these alliances and were these other explanations of what this evidence actually was, which overturned the previous biblical interpretations that represented what actually had happened in these places. And so as I was taught in my archaeology classes over and over again, I was taught that there is no evidence at all that the Canaanites sacrificed their children. So it became over time politically incorrect to interpret your finds the way that McAllister's and others had interpreted them for many years previous to that.
There's a reason you can smell the asparagus come out of you in your urine. It's good for kidney health. For ginger, recent study.
Look, they don't know that that's the place where past children were sacrificed. There's a little girl over there, like the little girl that was sawed in half and found in that context.
If only it was just all about the Amorites. If it was just a problem with the Amorites, then it would be a simple solution. You get rid of the Amorites, you get rid of the problem. However, the problem is universal across all humankind. If you think about modern nations, they also practice evil. They also sacrifice their own children through the practice of abortion.
We're Americans, right? Let me ask you a serious question. Is America going to stand in the final judgment and judge the Canaanites for their sin? Is America going to be innocent of the shedding of the blood of the innocent? Do you see how real the problem is? That the nature of man truly is evil all the time. That the problem really is sin. And because the problem is so real, we so desperately need a real solution. And the real solution, the only real solution to this nastiness and evil is where we were last night, where we finished the day, where God Himself came down as a sacrifice, the Son of God, and gave Himself so that we don't have to suffer the punishment which we deserve, so that we don't have to get the justice, but instead we can get what we don't deserve, which is mercy and grace. That's what the Bible is about. And we like to think of all the good stuff, right? But we can't forget the bad stuff and the reality of who we are as people. And this is a great place to think about it, about why Jesus had to do what He did.
The problem ultimately is that we all, by nature, are Amorites, and therefore we are under the punishment of our sin. How do you escape that? Well, There is in the Bible this woman whose name is Rahab, and her account is found in the book of Joshua, but it's summarized in Hebrews 11:31, where it says, "By faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient." Rahab was an Amorite. She was guilty of the sin. She was under the condemnation of the punishment, but she was saved from it by putting her faith in God, and we can do the same.